Ladies, gentlemen, people are going to say, hey, I thought Eon said he wasn't doing videos no more. Ladies and gentlemen, as I explained on the last one, Eon is a persona, and that persona will not be doing any more YouTube videos. He'll only be doing the videos on the Eon TV channel, which will be up more than likely next week. I will take a brief moment, and only a brief moment, ladies and gentlemen, to the extreme. And they're singing in my background, "Don't Cry No More." Okay? So we're gonna step away from telling everybody about my dislikes and how I feels and all of that stuff, because that was never Eon anyway. He told people what he was going through, but not so much talked about people as a whole, because we all know that for the most part there's something wrong with mankind. Come on, all of you can admit it. Look, the gentleman, I forgot his name already. The young man who just died, who the police killed. They pulled him over and said the plates didn't belong with the car. The plates didn't go with the car. Ladies and gentlemen, a traffic infraction is not an emergency. Pay attention. A traffic infraction is not an emergency. There was no reason for the officer to do what he did. He already had the guy on the ground, so all he had to do was put the handcuffs on. That's it. I didn't watch it because I don't watch stuff like that, but I can't tell you what was going on in anybody's mind, why the guy ran. I don't understand it. But he's not from this country. That much I could tell, especially by the parents speaking. There is something wrong with this planet. There is something wrong with mankind. And so they're going to need help. We cannot get help from man because man can't help man. Man is so busy trying to destroy themselves that they can't help each other. That's the whole problem with mankind. Okay, let me see if I can do this real quick, and then we'll get into what this video is supposed to be about. We have in our society that when government wants to unite the whole world, they create a common enemy. 9/11, they created terrorists. Okay, or as Bush would say, terrorists. Okay, so COVID, unite the world. They blamed it on China, but then said China is doing the best job in the world. So we're going to follow China's lead. Hey. They blamed it on China at first, and then they did exactly what China did. Then people, oh snap, I just sent this in and I forgot to change that. And I mailed this to the court, by the way. Just that simple. I mailed it to the court. They're going to see it's a template, and I don't care. Ladies and gentlemen, they create a common enemy and unites everybody underneath the common enemy. So first it was Al Qaeda, or Al Qaeda, as Bush would say, or ISIS. You know, ISIS is a goddess, right? Interesting, ain't it? I never knew what Al Qaeda stood for, but it doesn't matter. They create a common enemy. Makes everybody hate the same thing so that they can unite. But when they want to divide people, this one is evil, that one is evil, this one is a terrorist, that one is a threat. This is our society. Look at your associates, the people you hang around. When somebody gets mad at you, what is the first thing they do? They do not go and talk about you behind your back. Hey, don't take my word for it. Just sit back and think about it. See, that's why humans can't help humans, because we're backstabbers. We're untrustworthy. We can't be depended on. We can't be counted on. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not going to read this whole thing. I just want to give some of you guys an idea. Please understand this. Matter of fact, I want y'all to hold on for a second. I think I didn't pull this up. I'm gonna have to pause y'all and I'm gonna cry together for one. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this document is this very same one I was just reading. This thing is, pay attention, 171 pages long. That's how thick this motion is, because I want to get their attention. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a malfeasance. Malfeasance! Malfeasance. Anybody know what malfeasance is? Well, it encompasses everything. Everything possible that a trustee or a judge can do. You accuse them of malfeasance, and you don't have to sit up there and nitpick on every single aspect of what they did wrong. See, judges like to crawl underneath the judicial immunity and judicial protection and just charge them with malfeasance. Now, I want you to pay attention. Commercial business malfeasance, because they're operating in a commercial capacity. And attached to this, we attach their financial records, showing that they are a financial institution. Okie dokie. I want y'all to pay attention. Abuse of discretion, competitive undue influence. We found out that the courts have their own approved arbitrators, and they're coming after an arbitration association that's in competition with them. They're trying to snuff out the competition. Unjust profit or gain, conflict of interest, and simulating a lawful process. Didn't say legal process, said lawful process. We brought to this body's attention that it is presumed by the wording of the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America, which acts as a restraining order against government. Yes, the Constitution is a restraining order, that only Congress has the authority to write laws of the United States. By the way, this video won't be up until the 22nd of April of this year. Okay, this is it's today the 18th. Today is the 18th. It will not be up for another 5 days. Not doing videos every day. That's what Eon did. I ain't doing that. We challenge the insane position, as there is no evidence on any record that was the will of and or intent of the people to grant Congress authority over their persons. Ladies and gentlemen, go back and look at the Constitution. Nothing in that agreement shows that the people were giving anyone in government authority over them. Notice this. In fact, Congress's own creation of the very article for which it claims it derives its authority limits its jurisdiction to within the district, 10 square miles. Not the spiritual or metaphorical understanding of the term district, but the actual physical description as defined by that body. Ladies and gentlemen, they try to say when they said river, it include everything that's attached to the river. Sorry, ain't having that. The river was a boundary. The river itself. See, the river may flow into the Pacific, may flow into the Gulf, may flow into the Mississippi, may flow into the Indian Ocean. Doesn't matter where it flows. That becomes a different river. It's not the same river. If the Potomac was in India, and that means the United States has control over India. If it was in China, then that means China has control. So, it doesn't make any sense. So, Congress and the rest of the government were strictly prohibited from abridging the rights of the people. The First Amendment of the United States Constitution specifically says Congress shall not abridge the right of the people. Pay attention. Despite the First Amendment prohibition and the restraining order, Congress notes that it violated the conditions of the agreement, and it's supposed to be in its 1973 Senate Committee Special Report. Since March 9, 1933, the United States has been in a state of declared national emergency. In fact, there are now in effect 4 presidential proclaimed states of national emergency. In addition to the national emergency declared by President Roosevelt in 1933, there are also national emergencies proclaimed by President Truman, blah, 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 in the Korean War, and in Nixon, and blah, blah, blah. But here's the point. These proclamations gave force. Yes, there was force to, oh no, they used that word intentionally, to 470 provisions of federal law. These hundreds of statutes delegate to the president extraordinary power ordinarily exercised by Congress, which affect the lives of American citizens in a host of all-encompassing manners. This vast range of power taken together confer enough authority to rule this country without normal constitutional process, meaning they acted outside the Constitution, acted outside the scope of their authority. Well, let's make sure we understand. A majority of the people of the United States have lived all their lives under emergency rule for 40 years. Freedoms and government procedures guaranteed by the Constitution in varying degrees have in varying degrees been abridged by laws brought into force by the states of national emergency. Yes, and ladies and gentlemen, you're being forced under these provisions, and that's why I highlight the fact that it said force twice. So it used the word force intentionally. We, this is my speaking, must keep in mind that the prohibition of the First Amendment specifically and pointedly prohibits Congress from enacting any laws which abridges the rights of the people. And as noted above, and within the body of that report, that abridgment has taken place by force, which makes it unconstitutional. See, gives force to 470 provisions of federal law. These hundreds of laws dedicate to the president extraordinary powers. Congress, by force, through its apparent legislative pen, has enacted 470 federal statutes, regulations, codes, rules, ordinance, and the like. Colorable laws are not enacted by Congress. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Go look at your codes, your regulations, your statutes at large. Well, statutes at large, yes, but your revised statutes in the states, those things are not created by Congress. Congress only signs off on it. They sign off on the title. They only make sure that the title is correct, so it matches the title of the actual legislation. But the actual code itself is not law, was not law, and was not purported to be law. So why are you being hauled into court on something that isn't a law? Because you're not properly challenging it. And so we created a document. Eventually, I will get permission because RedressRight doesn't work for SACOM. Sorry, RedressRight does not work for the EON channel. Got to understand, different group, different organization, different personas. So I got to get permission. But this 171-page document, let me basically show you what it encompasses. No, come back up here. Where you at? Okay, keep going. Went too far down. We're supposed to be at page 10. That's page 18. There we go. Nope, that's the presidential proclamation. Ah, so now you're getting the idea. All right, this is the addendum window. Where you at, addendum? That's proclamation. I don't want to see that. I want to see... No, that's it right there. Rebuttal, right there. Rebuttal of record, addendum. A preponderance of evidence. Because remember, you have to rebut their so-called presumptions according to them by a preponderance of evidence to the contrary. So I put Presidential Proclamation 2039. Get a certified copy, ladies and gentlemen. Congressional record, specifically referring to page 83. Get a copy of the record. The Gold Abridgment Act, or the Act of June 5th, 1933, enacted the enactment of the House Joint Resolution 192. So this is the actual title. It's called An Act to Abrogate the Gold Clause. And Senate report on the termination of national agencies, 1973. There is one thing, and I got to call the person that I sent this to because I got to make sure that one other thing is included. And what I did is oh yes, that's got to be up there. Hold on now. Get back up here. We put the vital statistics information. Many of you may not have seen it yet, and we're going to talk about it in the future. Because a lot of people have used the vital statistics information, but we don't think they used it in the way it was intended. This is the Presidential Emergency Powers, the so-called War Powers Act. What I was supposed to include, and I have to send it to the person, I'm going to have them include it because I did add it. I want to show you guys something about this. We're going to go to page 7 and 8. What happens is somebody showed me a copy of page 7 and 8. Well, page 7. And this is, I think this is page 7. Do you see right here? Current birth registration process for a state vital records jurisdiction. Ladies and gentlemen, I want you to understand the birth certificate is what they are saying right here gives them jurisdiction. Hold on now. I didn't say it. Current birth registration process for a state vital records jurisdiction. Jurisdiction is one to have control over something. So apparently they have jurisdiction over the birth certificate. How do you get that back? Well, according to Minnesota Court Rule 220, you do an affidavit and you file it on the record. That's what the SAPACs did. Shh, don't tell nobody. Ladies and gentlemen, gentlemen and ladies, I want you all to pay attention. The birth clerk, the mama, mother, the birth log, the medical records, the pediatric doctor, the OBD, OBGYN, and the this is the nurse. What type of nurse is she? She's like a registration, but the registered nurse in the office. And this is the perinatal OB. Okay, now oh, prenatal, you know, that type of thing. Anyway, local registrar. See, it goes all the way over here to Vital Records office. And the local registrar, oh, look at that dollar sign. Somebody getting paid. Hold on, we ain't finished yet. Birth certificate state, so the state gets money. Uh-oh. Oh, Vital Records office. Oh, they get money. Ooh, there's a lot of money going around. Then they give money to the DMV, they give money to state Medicaid, and they give money to the interjurisdictional exchange. Hold up, is the interjurisdictional exchange? All of this going to all of these different people. So when people say, hey, birth certificate ain't nothing, that ain't got nothing to do with nothing, don't believe them other persons. Okay, do not believe them. Let's continue, shall we? Because we have a couple of things we want to bring to y'all's attention. Let you know that this is an actual motion that was filed, and I did it this morning, so there was no issue. This is what we've said to the court. This court, as well as the alleged financial institution, otherwise known as Plaza Mortgage, and the alleged officer of the court purporting to represent their interests, they got an attorney who claims that he's their attorney, as there is no power of attorney having been filed on the record documenting any such relationship between those two parties. We now bring a claim against the unscrupulous individual whose last name appears to be Lobo for injury caused by unlawful acts and or actions. More than a year has gone by, which is plenty enough time for the individual to have supplied proof of representation of a private corporation, as it is not a given that just because someone says something is true that it is. As in the case of the court, making it supposed to be appear that it is conducting a lawful process. The aforementioned appears to be an action in tandem in a conspiracy, each for unjust enrichment or gain. For instance, the court has its so-called authorized arbitrators, and on its website it provides a list of the so-called authorized arbitrators who are in direct competition with the Federal Arbitration Association, SITCOM. That's right, SITCOM is a Federal Arbitration Association, not a state arbitration association. There is no licensing of a Federal Arbitration Association. There is a licensing requirement for a state arbitration association. You will see that the federal arbitrators that are approved don't have a license. They just have the court's co-signing. And many of their arbitrators are associated with the American Arbitration Association and JAM. Oh, JAM. Okay. Which is another arbitration association. All right, let's continue, shall we? It would be one thing if the court was not engaged in commercial business, and if the court did not receive a fee associated with the arbitration mediation process. If the court clerk were not involved in a CRIS system, CRIS stands for the Court's Registry Investment System, whereby the clerk of the court appears to make investments on behalf of the court, utilizing monies received by the clerk of the court and allowed to collect and earn interest associated with these investments. Once again, government, true government of the United States, is a democratic government, one put in place by the people and not the state, or the so-called republic, for it is the people who form the government of the United States, and as is clear by the wording of the preamble and the contractual agreement operating as a permanent injunction or restraining order, it then it would be very difficult to prove commercial business activities respecting the CRIS system. But it is as a direct result that such must be documented through the financial ledgers and logs. The taxes must be assessed as a result of the commercial activities. As everyone knows, the sovereign pays no taxes. Yes, if they were sovereign government, they wouldn't know any taxes. But since the clerk of this court and the court itself receives an annual budget, which clearly covers all their annual expenses through the Administrative Office of the United States Courts budgetary allocation process, anything in excess of the monies received that come from taxpayers must be, by policy, documented. Yeah, if they're receiving extra money in and apart from what they received already in the allocation of their budgetary yearly annual budget, then they must document those extra monies. We put in our motion for clerk default referencing our counterclaim, which has a 30, it's not 30, it's $35 million per defendant claim. Yes, we put in a counterclaim for $35 million against each of the defendants, and the clerk has yet to respond. Our counterclaim has been sitting there for a year. Nobody has responded. So we did what we were supposed to do, got a default judgment request put in on the record before they could put an answer on the record. But only one of them put an answer because we added other defendants. Imagine that. However, the record clearly indicates that there has been no response to the counterclaim, which was served upon each of the parties via a non-party to the matter, who was above the age of 18, i.e. the clerk of the court. Ladies and gentlemen, the attorneys are registered with the court system. That means they automatically elect to receive documentation via electronic communication. So we let the clerk serve them. They can't say they didn't serve them because the clerk serves a copy on everybody. That is their policy. So thank you for providing service of process, because that's a matter of record showing that they served the other party. And then we served them, so they got served twice. So can't nobody argue that point. We also utilized a non-party who was above the age of 18 to serve all the parties. Proof of the service is a matter of record for greater than a year. There has been no objections to the counterclaim since the filing on the record, and to date there has been no response to the counterclaim. That has been a matter of record for greater than 12 months, approximately 369 days as of the filing of this instrument. Since the common law still exists in the United States as the Declaration of Independence, the Northwest Ordinance, and the Constitution for the United States of America's Bill of Rights are common law instrument documents, and the Seventh Amendment of the Constitution of the United States preserves in its restrictions against abridgment, sorry about that, stop moving, the right to trial by jury, not jury trial. It specifically says trial by jury. Does not say jury trial. Their statutory junk says jury trial. I didn't mean to do that, y'all. And now I can't even bring it back because I'm tired. So anyway, we'll get through it. We'll get this way because this is the bottom of the document. So I just want to read this last part, and then I got a meeting I got to go to. But I wanted to get this video on up here to y'all. Verification, notification, and validation. Our claim of malfeasance is supported by the record and the intentional as well as deliberate refusal of the court to prove jurisdiction. The Gold Abrogation Act holds that every provision contained in any contract in or made with respect to any obligation, contractual obligation, which purports to give the obligee, another word for creditor, a right to require payments in a currency of the United States measured thereby, is declared to be against public policy, and no such provision shall be contained in or made with respect to any obligation hereafter incurred. Every obligation, contractual obligation, shall be discharged upon payment, dollar for dollar, in any coin or currency, which is at the time legal tender for the payment of all debts. I want you all to pay attention to this. It's very important. It appears that this body is failing to recognize the contract between the people and the commercial government, the New Deal. A contractual agreement, a contractual agreement had value and consideration. The people, via the Gold Abrogation Act and their conduct, gave value. The government were to give the due consideration. The ownership of all property is an estate. Individual so-called ownership is only by virtue of government, i.e., amounting to mere user law. Ladies and gentlemen, I want y'all to pay attention. The ownership of all property, that's where you gave over your rights. But that's the government accepting it. Under the new law, the money is issued to the bank in exchange for government obligations, bill of exchange, drafts, so on and so forth. I got to end this now. I'm sorry about that. But basically, I'm going slow now. Y'all just pause the video and y'all just read what it says, because it gives y'all the entire argument for when y'all bringing y'all claim into this stupid courts. That's what it does. So all you got to do is pause it. That's the, oh no, I got one more thing about the practice of law, because people might get mad at me. And we don't want them getting mad at me, huh? I don't care. Gotta go. Take care. Out of here.